Welcome back. It's 2025 and Bobby and Jens are back on the odd tandem. We thought we'd do something we've never done before this time, which is something that's been requested by you fans, a little bit of a preview of the 2025 season. And the way it's going to work is I'll fire some questions at these guys and then disappear off, and these guys will answer them using the best of their expertise. So first of all, this came actually from a question related to our Grisha Nierman podcast, and there was a lot of people saying you didn't talk about Simon Yates. And it's a good point. We didn't talk about Simon Yates. So will his appearance at Visma help them to close the gap on UAE?
Well, I guess they do have an excellent climber added to the rooster. They had Robert Gesink, a very loyal, a very good climber, reliable climber, ending his career. So I believe that would be a really, really good replacement for Robert Gesink. The interesting fact, or the spicy fact, is he will be racing against his twin brother, who happens to be in the main competitors team. So it's one Yates trying to help Pogacar to win another tour, and the other Yates twin is trying to help for Jonas Vingegaard to win another one. So now imagine you're the parents of one of them. But who do you pick? Who do you pick? You're both sons racing basically against each other. And we might see a situation where they drag racing each other. Simon and Adam Yates on the left and on the right side of the road with their leaders just sitting on their wheels. This is gonna be... I'm happy you brought that up because that was in my points later to come. Yes, definitely it will help the team. It will make the rooster stronger. Plus Simon Yates, he knows how to win himself. He can read a race, and he has shown that he is a valuable part of the team wherever he goes.
I definitely think that Simon's going to be a huge addition to that team. But let's not forget, just the year before in 2023, those guys were shredding everybody. So they had a lot of bad luck. Wout wasn't the Wout that we saw in 2023. Sepp Kuss was not even at the tour because he came down with COVID. I think they're going to be just fine. I mean, they took it on the chin this year. They had some terrible luck. So bringing Simon in is one piece of the puzzle, but they have to sort out those other pieces of the puzzle as well. And I'm sure they're going to do it, because when you go from doing what they did in 2023 and then the amount of bad luck, it seems like this sport just kind of is like a wheel. It just kind of spins around. So although Simon is going to be a great addition to the team, I think it depends more on just staying safe out there and not having as much bad luck as they had in 2024.
Yeah. And then the female peloton, obviously, we talk about dominant teams. There's no team more dominant than SD Worx, or has been historically for the last few years. A little bit broken at the tour, and, there's a number of changes that have happened with that team we'll get to later. But is their dominance in the women's peloton ending this year?
Well, a lot of things are changing, right? Lotte Kopecky is going to be the leader. Anna van Breggen is coming back. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. But looking at the races that they won with Lorena Wiebes and Lotte Kopecky, I still think you're the king of the hill until somebody knocks you off. And even though Demi Vollering has gone over to FDJ Suez, Elisa Longo Borghini has gone over to the UAE ADQ team. I like that. It's going to be a little bit more parity. It's going to bring the level of competition up. And then don't forget that the defending champion, Kasia Niewiadoma, they've made some great additions to that team. And with Chloe Dygert really coming through at the end of the year on the road last year, and then focusing on the classics and for sure the tour, it's great to see the parity change a little bit. And I'm so looking forward to it. But, we have a lot of time until the tour, a lot of great racing before the tour. So I think we're going to see it kind of shape out naturally. But once the tour comes around, everything's on the table.
I am really interested in the question if Lotte Kopecky is actually willing to transform herself into a pure GC rider. In the moment, she's a super strong, classy classics rider. She's punchy. She got a good sprint on her. She can win out of a smaller group in a sprint. She can drop everyone and arrive by herself. So if she is willing to risk all that to maybe become that perfect climber you have to be if you want to win the men's or the women's Tour de France. So the question there is Anna van der Breggen, is she going to be their GC rider? Is she just trying to come back? Or is she taking over the classics role? And that Lotte Kopecky is their leader for the Tour de France. And I can only add to Bobby's words, the defending champion. Do you know how to win now? And they got it in them. Like Bobby said, the team is looking better. And Demi Vollering, she has to adjust to a new team. It might be it's a change, and a change can be better, but also it can be not as good as you hoped for. So I guess we have to wait for a few weeks or days into the season to see how perfectly Demi Vollering fits in there. So I guess they will probably still win the most races, but maybe not the Tour de France. Team SD Worx.
I think Jens has hit on the key point of this podcast. It's my favourite time of year because we're nowhere in the season at the moment. We're wildly speculating, but that's part of the fun of it. So on that speculation, I mean, there have been a number of teams in both pelotons that have made a leap forward. We spoke a lot about Lidl Trek last year doing that. Who in either peloton do you expect to be the team that makes that step forward? If they're not going to get to the top, but make a big step towards getting the gap closed?
I would think the leading team, UAE, they don't need to change anything. Just keep doing what they did because it worked out pretty cool. The next team, Jumbo-Visma, they don't need to change too much. They just need to stop crashing or having bad luck with sicknesses and accidents or incidents. They did good. They know how to win. They won the Tour de France twice. So they don't need to change too much. Lidl Trek, they got two sprinters, so I guess they will win a lot of races with Mats Pedersen and also the Italian sprinter. So they're good for wins, but maybe not the Grand Tours. Bora Hansgrohe, they probably hope to be better. They had the big money, the big spectacular sponsor coming in with Red Bull. I mean, Red Bull is running Formula One team. So, if they want, they could just buy cycling or buy 5 teams if they want to. So the money is there. Money raises pressure and expectations. And with Primož saving the season with the win of the Vuelta, it is good, but they were hoping maybe for a little bit more. So I think that will be the team where most eyes are on. What they have changed now that the sponsor has arrived, they have the money, they have the security, they can plan ahead for a few more years with that sponsor. So they need to deliver now. So I think the pressure, expectations, and the desire to go is within Bora Hansgrohe. Or Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe.
Yeah, man, everybody changing names. It's tough. But, you got to look back at this season, or last season, I'm sorry, since we're in 2025 now. Lidl Trek and Decathlon La Mondiale, they made massive jumps, right? I mean, Lidl Trek moved up, I think, 6 spots, and Decathlon moved up 10. I don't know if there's that much more room for growth for Lidl Trek because they lack that GC guy, and that's where a lot of the points are made. I would love to see a Theo Gegenhardt come back. But I think the team that is going to see the most improvement, because, those top 3 teams are doing very well. The top 5 teams are doing very well. But Bahrain Victorious, with Rod Ellingworth coming back into the fold, I think that's going to be quite interesting to watch. They seemed like they were a little bit lost this year. And I think with Rod Ellingworth being back at the helm, that's going to right the ship a little bit, and those guys will come back to their winning ways, or at least a lot better than this year. In the women's peloton, I'm really curious about the transition of Demi Vollering over to a new French team, FDJ Suez. I think that's going to be very interesting to see how she can change that team into the team that she needs to be successful. When you look at Lisa Longo-Borghini going over to the UAE ADQ team, it's kind of the same thing. Things could go really right or really wrong. So, all the big teams that won the big races, they're going to be just fine. And like you said earlier, that's the best thing about the beginning of the season is we just don't know. Who did their homework over the off season, who bonded as a team. Right now in the men's peloton, you can see that UAE Emirates, they've changed their name as well now. So it being the first time, I don't feel bad about mistaking the name of that team. They're clicking. Visma Lisa Bike is clicking. They don't have much to change. But like in the women's peloton, there's so many questions. But you're going against Canyon Schramm, who seem to be the most together, congealed team with great morale and great team leadership and a few great additions. So, I mean, we're just sitting here, beginning of January, throwing out some ideas, but it's going to be very, very clear with the Tour Down Under starting very, very soon. And then, of course, the European calendar kicking off even, just a few weeks away.
Maybe just a little add-on. We are not allowed to forget all these spectacular signings from the so-called smaller teams. Fabian Cancellara, our old teammate, Tudor Cycling, they got some big hitters, at least in terms of names, coming to their team, experience, class, and hopefully the desire to win. And also the team Q36.5. I mean, they signed Tom Pidcock. What the heck? So they might be the new superstar teams and, maybe just, taking the lead or taking a lot of early wins just to prove their point that they are arrived at the big scene now. So maybe these two teams in the men's cycling are also going to be quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, and now back to the women's peloton. We mentioned her a little bit already, but Anna van der Breggen is taking a trip from the DS car back into the peloton. We've seen in other sports people make a return after a few years out. Michael Schumacher did it in Formula One. Michael Jordan did it in basketball. How difficult is it to make that step back once you've stopped? You guys have both retired. You know what it's like that first year. How difficult is it to return to the form you had? And what level are we expecting from her this year?
I'm expecting a lot because most people that retire from the sport go off and do something totally different, maybe take a break from the sport entirely. But Anna was in the car. She was not missing a beat. She was still learning all this new technology that was coming up in the 3 or 4 years since she's retired. She was at the cutting edge. She was the one that was, there in the car giving out the orders. So I think she's going to come back very, very well. I don't think she's lost much form. I think she's stayed fit. But most importantly, she stayed connected to what changes have gone on in the sport. And they have, let's face it, they have been massive the last couple of years. So I don't think she's going to miss a beat. I mean, double world champion, Olympic champion. I mean, success after success. And I'm just surprised that it didn't happen earlier because, that's a kind of a big break to be in the car. But like, if you're mentally switched on and doing a little bit of training, there's got to be something that said, hey, I've got more left. So I think it's going to be a very quick transition for her back into the peloton. But then again, 3 years off the racing, pedaling instead of, giving the directions over the microphone are going to be a totally different thing.
I am actually on completely the other side here. I can't remember any successful comeback. It was okay, maybe a Michael Jordan comeback. It was okay, but it wasn't. Wow, bam, he's back. 3 years, and we talked about that in many, many other episodes, how fast and great women's cycling is developing. They race so good, so fast. Anna van der Breggen, she never raced a women's Tour de France because that just didn't exist when she was racing. So that's a new thing for her. And I mean, Bobby, you and me, we realized I probably lost easy 25% of my capacity within the first year. and easy another 25% a second year. So the gap is quite big after 3 years of retiring. The good thing is, like you said, Bobby, she stayed in the game. She knows the tactics. She knows the names. She knows what rider to follow. She knows the routes because she has driven on them in the car. But I believe she's 3 years older. There's a reason why she went out in the first place. I don't see her becoming a world champion again. She will be a very good rider. But after 3 years off the bike, it will take a lot for the body to come back to that racing level. And as I said, women's cycling has developed quite dramatically, and it's a lot faster and competitive now. So that might be the big question mark of the year. But yeah, I'm on the other side. I don't think it will be as great. I hope I'm wrong, but in my job as expert, I have to say what I think will happen. My heart says, no, she will be great. But my head said, no, the odds are, I guess, against her.
I had a thought about this earlier today, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. We know, obviously, the key moment in the SD Worx season was the fall of Demi Vollering at the Tour de France and the subsequent confusion over what happened. And I wondered, is Anna van der Breggen saying, hey, maybe I'm not at that level, maybe she is, but maybe she's not at that level, and maybe the problem was that they didn't have a road captain on the road that could sufficiently guide everyone to the right place. And that's what she's thinking. Maybe, with, Lotte Kopecky leading the team, maybe that's the part that she's trying to add. Is that possible?
Oh, but, it's probably easier to communicate with the team from the team car over the radio than it is when you're got your heart rate pinned and you're actually in the race with the other ladies. That's a really interesting question, but I think if you're going to be a road captain, you need to lead in the bus and on the bike. And that's the question that we still have to wonder. Is she coming back to be a road captain, or is she coming back to be a race winner? And, that's going to be the question. And I'm sure we're going to see that pretty early on in the season of, what her capacity is. But she's a champion. And I don't think she would walk back into this sport if she thought she was just going to get piped off the back. She's seen the numbers. She's done the training. I'm sure she still rides her bike with a power meter. She knows the times that these ladies are doing up these races. I don't think she would step back in if she was just going to be pack fill. So there's something that I've always said to riders, that when you retire, you absolutely have to make sure that it's over, that you achieved everything. She seemed to have made that decision and stuck to it for a couple years, and now here we are 3 years later, and she's coming back into the peloton. So I'm just happy for her that she's going to be able to get that out, and then when she does retire, she's going to have no regrets. But you don't have the success that she had, and then step off into the car, and then not expect to be at that same level. I don't think anyone, Alberto Contador, after he retired, there were rumors that he was going to come back and do the Vuelta because he didn't do what I did, which was focus on, coaching and management. I didn't ride my bike hardly at all. And Jens, when you said I lost 25%, I'd probably say I lost 75%, because it was, I got it all out. My priorities switched, but man, it's going to be interesting to see. What do you think, Jensi?
Well, here's an easy example for that. Bobby, if you and me, if we have a comeback, we would be happy to be a domestic deluxe or a road captain. If somebody like Cancellara or Peter Sagan has a comeback, they want to win. They want to be champions again. So with her, you mentioned it, double world champion, Olympic champion. She is probably not going to come back to be a domestic. And that's an even bigger call from 3 years in the car. Hey, I want to win the world championships in 8 months from now. So that's a big step. And yes, she knows how it works. She must have seen the numbers. But hey, I thought I'm a smart boy and I win a Nobel Prize, but that didn't happen. So, reality, sometimes it's pretty harsh. As I say again, I wish her all the best. And I think it's fascinating that she has the character and is brave enough to do that. But it's a big adventure.
Yeah, you mentioned there, obviously, Anna van Breggen, huge name. With a huge name comes huge expectations. And it's that kind of caveats this next point, because we did say in the last podcast that we did that Remco Evenepoel had one of the greatest seasons of all time. The problem is he lives in an era with two of the greatest Grand Tour cyclists of all time. Is next year the year he has to close the gap to Jonas and Tadej if he wants to win the Tour?
Alrighty, so here is a bit of hope for all our viewers and listeners and fans. The Tour 25 will not at all be as dominant by Tadej Pogacar, because just by the law of average, Tadej is going to be good, yes, but Jonas and Remco are not going to crash and break bones in the Tour of the Basque Country. That is not going to happen again, because, and we saw the year before when Tadej crashed himself in Liège. He was second in the Tour, so it takes a long time at that level to be competitive. Remco, with the confidence of double Olympic champion, he knows time trialing is his strength. He just needs to hang on just a little bit longer, just 1 mile or whatever, 2 kilometers longer in the mountains. And then he can pump him in the TT. So I believe he's getting older, more experience. He got a confidence. His team is looking good. So I believe he will have a really good year, and he will be challenging Tadej and also Jonas. And also Jonas, we talked about that before, just the numbers he puts out. If he's healthy and in shape, he's hard to beat. So this Tour will be so much closer than we expect right now.
Remco's 24, Tadej's 26, Jonas is 28. I don't think this is the year that he absolutely has to break through, but the progression that we saw both on and off the bike, just the way that he is much more respected in the peloton, I think he doesn't have to rush this. Maybe another year or two. But the other question that I have for Remco is, you just lost the big boss, Patrick Lefevere, right? Like, he is not there anymore. I think that's going to be a positive thing, because I think Patrick Lefevere added some pressure that didn't really need to be there quite often. But it'll be interesting what his team can do, because we all know that, yes, the guys that win the Tour are the guys, best of the rest. But that team needs to get a little bit better supporting a GC contender, and they have the potential. And now with Remco's respect in the peloton, with his confidence, with his, I'd say, cool demeanor compared to the prior years. I mean, yes, everybody has stress at a certain time, especially when you flatten the last few K of the Olympics. But let's see what that team does for his supporting cast. And I think that's going to take some time. So for me, I don't think he needs to make the jump to challenging these guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Okay. Now, someone that's obviously been through the same sort of path as Remco. Remco was a double junior world champion in the women's peloton. Kat Ferguson has made that same step, and she's moving up to the elite level this year. She was someone that Ned Boulting flagged to us. Obviously, we were kind of aware before, but he made a big point of saying that she's got a big career ahead of her. What can we expect from her first year, and what does a successful debut season look like for her?
Well, she doesn't turn 19 until April, and she is a massive talent. We all know that. But, man, that is a big jump going from the juniors into the World Tour. She can do it, and she, obviously has the talent and the support of people like Ned Boulting. Being on Movistar is going to be interesting. I don't really know so much about the development program in that team or the expectations in that team. I don't know if she knows Spanish already. That's going to, it's a big jump going from, the juniors to the World Tour, but then having the pressure of being the next potential Tour de France Femme winning candidate from the UK. Ooh, let's just feather the pedal a little bit. Let's give her some time to develop. Let's get her some time to be comfortable with the longer distances and the bigger race schedule. But it seems from what all I've heard and all the research that I've done that she absolutely has the potential to be great, like Ned Bolting said.
It also depends what the team wants from her or expects from her. If they throw her into the classics and the Grand Tours, she might have a tougher start. If they say, hey, listen, like Bobby said, you're still 18 for the first months of the season. Why don't you go to a smaller race first, get used to the speed, the bigger peloton, and maybe in the middle of the year, we see how you get along and we put you under more pressure at bigger races. Or, I mean, they train together. They must see her numbers. She knows how to race. She knows how to win. If they see the numbers, the power she takes out at a certain heart rate, how long she can hold that max power, if all these numbers add up, they go, you know what? You look like you're a potential candidate for a podium in the classics. Go for it. Over there's the finish line and just go and have fun. Maybe that's a good way to go. You know, easy start. Hey, listen, we save you. We build you up slowly. Or they go, hey, you know what? You are our Remco and just go.
And you guys will have been on teams where you've had some wonderkin come through who's shown all the potential, the numbers. You know, how do they get handled, and what do you think is the right way to handle it from what you've seen, and what's the wrong way to handle it? You know, the talent within the team.
I have to say, sadly, I have seen a lot more talents failing than actually making it to the top. I have seen talents, super talents, performing like me, which is below their level. They were way better, way more talented. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get the entire potential out of themselves. I also have seen, Bobby will agree to that, especially in Bjarne's team, we have seen a lot of young kids overtraining the first training camp, trying to impress the team owner, trying to impress the older guys or impress the coach. Overtrained, and they disappeared for 2 months because they needed to recover. So that is a crucial step. Know your limits and know the numbers you can push without overcooking it. And also back in our days, cycling was a lot more traditional. Like we didn't have super talents like Remco or like Tadej, who wins the Tour de France at 22. People would have laughed at you if you say, I want to win the Tour de France at 24. They would go, you silly bugger. Maybe 8 years from now, but not with 22. So I didn't have too much experience with super talents like that back in my days.
Yeah, I think as soon as you asked that question, Andy Schleck's name popped into my mind. He was one of the guys that could look at his bike and get fit. And, you know, he saw massive success, even if we were questioning his work ethic and his professionalism. But he did it his way. And, you know, he came up very early. He won very early. And like you said, Jens, this sport has changed. It goes from the traditional, let's not push these kids too hard, to now, hey, like you said, there's the finish line. Go for it. If you're the strongest person, go for it. So I think with the amount of technology and the data, the tracking data that's out there, and the coaching getting better and better, I think that these kids have much more of a chance of succeeding at a young age than back in the day when we were racing, because honestly, we were never even given that chance. Like if you were a young guy on the team, the older riders would pull you aside and say, hey, listen, you know, you're here to work for us. And that was kind of like stamping down that expectation. And I think that handcuffed a lot of riders. And, you know, if you don't have that inspiration, and if you're always scared that, hey, if I do this, I'm going to, you know, piss off the older riders on the team, you're not going to fulfill your potential. But I think everybody in the sport right now is like, hey, if you got it, go for it. And that's something that we never saw or experienced, but we're seeing it in the men's peloton a lot, and we're going to start to see it in the women's peloton as well.
Yeah, I remember just Bobby said about different times. My first Pyrenees, I did nothing but bringing bottles and rain jackets. Nothing but that. And keeping our sprinter Fred Monkersang out of the wind for most of the stage. And every now and then, hey, go and get a warm tea bottle, or go and get a bottle, go and get my rain jacket, bring my rain jacket back. That was it. An entire week of just servicing. And I never complained because I was so happy to have a contract. Things have changed, of course, until now.
Well, on that note, this is obviously the time of year where we look at these small races, small in inverted commas, like, you know, the semi-classics and your shorter tours, your tour down unders. Are they a good gauge of working out how people's form is, or are they just about bagging points now and people training specifically just so they can get the points for later in the year for the team?
Let's just say points mean prizes. You know, we're in a relegation year. The people, you know, the teams that are lower down on that relegation list are going to be looking at those points very much more important than the bigger teams. But this calendar is so long. You're going to have guys like, who would have thought that Stevie Williams would have won the Tour Down Under last year, right? Like, he came out of nowhere for me and won the first World Tour race of the season. It is always a question about phase planning. You know, you want to be competitive in every race, not necessarily with the same rider, but man, it is it has totally changed the preparation that you have to do to get ready for these races. You know, my favorite story that I heard, and, you know, we'll have to get him on the podcast to actually confirm it, is that Steve Bauer went to Paris-Nice one year and won the prologue with less than 1,000 kilometers in his legs and with hair on his legs as well. There is no way you can do that anymore. So you got to be there or thereabouts basically the whole year. You know, we'd see riders gain not 5 kilos, but 10 plus kilos over the off season. They'd have to come to the training camp, and then the clothes wouldn't fit. So they'd have to get a size higher. And then they'd use those training camps and those early season races as preparation, you know, to lose that. But you cannot ride into form anymore. Obviously, you stay away from those races that are above your ability at that time. But every single race you have guys peaking for. So Tour Down Under, just a few weeks away, I would be scared to see how hard those riders had to train to be ready for that race. You know, you're doing full on race efforts starting in November, December. You know, you're peaking. You're starting to taper right now, and then you're going to be rocking and rolling. But you know, that's just the way the sport has changed. You know, we used to go down to Tour Down Under, and you know, just for fun, there'd be a few guys taking it serious, but not the majority of the peloton. Now the majority of the peloton is doing it, and it's like that every single race.
Correct. There's no more such thing than an easy race or a present stage. Yeah, just let the breakaway go away. Give it to them. I like the guy. No. Every race, every result, every point counts. As Bobby said, relegation year, that is a big one. And an often underestimated fact of the Tour Down Under is, after results of Tour Down Under, they will make the order of the cars in Milan-San Remo. And we all know how many crashes and punctures can happen or do happen. So if you have the first car, it could change between winning or not making it back after a crash or after a puncture. So Down Under is super, super important for placing your car in Milan-San Remo. And it's the only stage race before the big classics season. The big classics come up. Okay, we have Paris-Nice-Tirreno, but it is a super, super important race for that point already. And yeah, there is not such an easy races. I mean, you know, before early we used to race the Tour Le Bessèges or Tourmalet. Well, no, they're not easy anymore. They are full gas because every rider who knows, okay, I cannot beat Pogacar, Remco or Jonas. But at Tourmalet, I can beat all the other ones. And you have 10 of them. They think the same thing. They think, I cannot win the Giro against these guys, but I can win these races. So people, like Bobby said, people peaking for every single race. People start the season later. People start early and then, you know, drop the shape, come back for the end of the season. So at any given point in the season, you will have people at the absolute peak. So there's no more just cruising or easy racing. And yeah, the so-called smaller races, they are bloody hard as anything.
You sort of touched on it there about how training's changed. Going back to when you guys were racing, what would this period in early January look like in terms of your training? Would you be sort of ramping up, ramping down? Would you be sort of barely training? I don't know. What would you be doing at this point?
It depends where your goals are. I believe everybody that wants to go to Tour Down Under is already there to get adapted to the time zone, to the climate, get over the heat, make it easier for the body to race. So they have a different program there. They are down there now. They probably do less miles, more intervals to get that taste of blood in their mouths. Not in the first stage, but already before on training. So when it comes to racing, you are actually race fit. If you start later, you would, at this point of the year, still do some big miles.
Yeah. Oh boy. Just bringing back some memories of how clueless we were back in the day.
Yeah.
We didn't have training peaks. Some of us didn't have power meters. It was kind of just going out there and hoping that you were doing the right thing. You didn't have the coach able to look at your data and then multiple data streams. Now you can look at your food intake. You can look at your heat adjustability. You can look at your sleep, all these things. So I would say that many times, especially earlier in my career, before we went to CSC, for sure, it was just, man, I hope I'm ready. But with CSC, with Bjarne Riis, I think you actually said this when on one of the movies that they did. They filmed this for Overcoming. And we would go out there and the training camps were harder than any race that I had done the season before. And I remember you having this quote, Jensi, when we came back from training, the races are going to be easy after this training camp. And I don't know, that sort of intense work without the pressure and then with being able to recover, that really seemed to work for me. The sitting there and riding at 18K an hour or 18 miles an hour for 6 or 7 hours, 8 hours, like when I was on a team like Telecom, that didn't do it for me. I just got mentally tired and I didn't feel sharp. But with the training that it was for the first time super specific, even though we were 25 guys on the team, we would break into groups and basically race each other, even on medium, zone 2, zone 3 sort of efforts. It would ramp up, and it just clicked for me. But I can't imagine how specific the training is now, the diet, the sleep data, all this stuff. It seems to be a little bit easier to predict what's going to happen than back in the day when we were just kind of throwing, darts against a dartboard in the dark.
You've both changed teams in the off season. When that happens and you move to a new team, how useful is this period to get acquainted with your new teammates? Or is it that you sort of meet your new teammates, but they only really trust you after you've done a race together and you've been in the fight together?
You learn nothing under pressure. Like if you wait to bond until the crap is hitting the fan, it's way too late because you have way too many questions. And that was one of the things, again, not to just, blow smoke up Bjarne Riis's butt again, but like he got us together in the off season and we bonded there. And it wasn't just at the bar like most teams do. You go out and train a little bit and then you go and have some drinks and you're supposed to bond as a team. But no, you got to break guys down to their weakest. And that's where you see who you can depend on. When you're hungry, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, who can you count on? That is, if you're waiting to the races to find that out, I think it's too late. It has to be in the winter training camps, on the bike, under pressure. I don't think guys sit down in the lobby of the hotels and have coffee after dinner until 10 or 11 o'clock at night because it seems like the younger generation are going up onto their computers, iPads, cell phones, and watching Netflix and stuff like that. So it comes from knowing who is next to you and knowing their strengths and their weaknesses. And when you're strong, you need to offer help to others, but when you're weak, you need to ask for help. And I think in cycling and in all sports, everyone has an ego and they're too scared to ask questions. And when it comes to who's going to make a decision on the road, if you've already kind of realized that pecking order from the activities that you did in the off season or from the previous year's experience, you know that you're not going to give or ask a very important question under stress to someone that doesn't have that ability to lead. So it's not only the physical ability, it's that ability to put that physical exertion to the side and really make the right decision at the right time. So I don't think you can do that in the races. It has to come from years of working together, or in a new rider's case, coming and bonding at those camps in December and January.
I agree. It's important to do that before the season, the hard racing starts. And these team building camps, or survival camps called, they did really serve that purpose. Absolutely, I agree what Bobby said. It depends on what position you're aiming at the team. You know, if you just want to be a leader, hey, you might as well just act like, hey, I'm untouchable and I'm above everything. Or you do the other way, go, hey, I watched you last season, different team, of course, but hey, I saw that your pedal stroke is a little bit like this. Why didn't you change it like that? Or why didn't you have a shorter or longer head stem, and then maybe your position becomes better, and you go, look, he's really trying to be part of the team, you know, trying to help. You also need to learn a little bit about the politics of the team. Who is together with who is the secret king of the team or not. And sometimes it's also quite funny. My first training camp in December 97, I had at least 12 people fully convinced, telling me, yeah, I do Pyrenees, but it's only 8 spots. And I had 12 people fully convinced, yeah, I'm on a program for Pyrenees. So you go, I wonder how this is going to work out, you know. So it's also a learning process of how the team functions. Important to get used to the new material. You know, each team might have a different bike fit, or person doing the bike fit, they might tell you different things. And then also there's a bit of pressure on you. Do you trust in what you learned before? Or you go, you know what, I'm going to throw all this overboard and have a fresh new start. But then maybe if that doesn't work for you, you might lose 2 or 3 months. So there is getting accustomed to the team, to the people, but also the hardware, how they race, with what material they race, and you go, is this going to work for me or not?
Yeah. And one more thing to that point that I'd like to add is so much of it comes from the general manager. You know, you can have a leader on the road, but I think so much of that comfort, that confidence is exuded from the senior management, because a lot of these guys have been racing themselves. They know how important morale is. You got to keep it positive. And stress, especially that external stress coming from that general manager that is calling out some riders because they're not performing, that is the way to kill a team's morale, because everyone is suddenly looking after themselves. The best teams that I've been on that really, where I felt most secure, was having confidence in the senior management that they weren't just there to flick you or put pressure on you, but make you more confident and more able. Because when you're confident, secure, and comfortable, guess what? You're going to ride your bike a lot better. But if you're constantly being berated with negative comments, rumors, things in the press, that's one way to strip a team to its core, and you're never going to get the best out of the riders if they're feeling like that.
Okay, and we're nearly at the end of this podcast, but before we go, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your feelings towards the season coming up. I'm going to take away for this next one the Tour de France and the Tour de France Femme. You can't have either Tour de France, but apart from those races, which race are you most looking forward to as we sit here in January?
Ooh, tough question. I would say Liège-Bastogne-Liège, because the winner of that often has a lot more success throughout the rest of the season. The winner of Liège often ends up winning the Giro or the Tour. So it's promising. If you can win that race, you are up for a great season. So I guess it's Liège-Bastogne-Liège for me.
That would have been my pick as well, but my close second is Paris-Nice. And it's not just because I was successful and I won that race. It is the first real big kind of pressurized stage race of the year. And it really sets the tone. And often you see the rider that wins Paris-Nice goes on and wins a lot more stage races after that, including the Tour de France. I think it's a great place to really see who's ready for the season, because you have time to peak for that, to come down again, to be ready for the classics, to come down again, to get ready for the Dauphiné and then the Tour de France. So it seems to me like Paris-Nice is kind of like that measuring stick of, who's going to be successful in July, who has the team, because as we know, it's a short stage race, quote unquote short. It's only 8 days, but you have to have your head on a swivel the whole entire time. And pretty much everyone there is on peak form. So that race is the one for me that really sets the table for the rest of the year. Tirreno is also going on at pretty much the same time. It's a little bit different. But for me, when you look at people that are riding well in Paris-Nice and start the season off well there, and they have expectations in the summer, that's the race that gets me most excited to watch.
Okay, and now we're on to bold predictions. Now, this could be a race result. It could be something that happens. It doesn't have to happen at one particular time. It can take us over the year. It can be very serious or not at all serious. But I want you both to make a bold prediction for 2025.
I thought a lot about this, and especially after having our podcast with Grisha Nerman, I'm going to say that Jonas Vingegaard is going to win the Tour in 2025.
Okay. Jensi.
My one is that I believe that Mathieu van der Poel will not be participating in the Tour de France. His first and only stage win is 3 years ago now, or more. Wasn't it 21 when he took the jersey as well? And I think he even once mentioned it. What's the point of me of being there? I cannot do GC. All the GC riders, they take every single stage now. They attack early, and the rest for the sprinters. So what is my purpose there? So I think he might skip the Tour to be ready and try again for another World Championships.
Interesting.
And my bold prediction for the women's peloton is Chloe Dygert is going to win a major cobbled classic this year. She had a great end of the season. She got second in the World Championships. When I tell you, I've met a lot of bike racers in the past. This woman is absolutely focused, and she's going to be concentrating on the classics this year. So I think she's absolutely going to win one of the cobbled classics, and I hope it's Roubaix, but Flanders would be right there as well.
Amazing. Well, that's the end of this Odd Tandem special preview for the season 2025. Thanks once again to our Patreon subscribers, whose names will appear over here, or if you're listening on the audio app, it will be in the description. So thank you very much for your support, and we'll be back with a big name interview next week.